We're going to watch an Allan Watts video. I have a feeling everybody knows who he is, but if not, he has been a very influential character, role model in my life, learning how to understand my thinking, my processing, and just the world in general. So I hope you guys enjoy this.
Most civilized people are out of touch with reality because they confuse the world as it is with the world as they think about it.
Those are two distinctly different ways of thinking that he's going to go more into, but it is true. We view the world in the way that we want to see it, whereas everybody else views the world in the way they want to see it. Everybody has their own preconceived notion of how the world is. No twos really align 100%. There can be similar values in them, but no two are exactly the same.
And talk about it and describe it. For on the one hand, there is the real world, and on the other, a whole system of symbols about that world which we have in our minds. These are very, very useful symbols. All civilization.
If we didn't have symbols, we wouldn't be able to associate the world with how we associate it, and nothing would really make sense. This is why we put certain symbols to certain things. So like a symbol for paper is something that we use to write on. A symbol for drinking could be water bottles. Like there's multiple symbols that we have, and without them, we wouldn't be able to function as a society.
Civilization depends on them, but like all good things, they have their disadvantages. And the principal disadvantage of symbols is that we confuse them with reality.
Which is exactly what I was saying. There are certain aspects of it that do allow us to associate them with reality, but it's only the reality that we give them. If we didn't have the reality, if we didn't have the symbols that we have, then we wouldn't be able to associate them in any way, shape, or form.
Just as we confuse money with actual wealth.
That is very true. Wealth and money are two completely different things. I'm working towards wealth. A lot of other people might just be working for money. If you want to have true freedom in your life, you want to have wealth. You want to obtain wealth. God, I cannot say that.
And our names about ourselves, our ideas of ourselves, our images of ourselves, with ourselves. Now, of course, reality, from a philosopher's point of view, is a dangerous word. A philosopher will ask me, what do I mean by reality?
Philosophy is something that I highly recommend each and every person go and learn about, because it's going to help you understand more about yourself and question like, okay, well, why does this philosopher think this way? Why does this philosopher think that way? And how can I take both philosophers' point of views and make them my own?
Am I talking about the physical world of nature? Or am I talking about a spiritual world? Or what? And to that I have a very simple answer. When we talk about the material world, that is actually a philosophical concept. So in the same way, if I say that reality is spiritual, that's also a philosophical concept.
Everything is philosophical. There was an episode on Joe Rogan a couple of weeks ago, I believe. Can't remember the exact guest, but he was talking about how all these other philosophers have already done all the information that he was trying to research for his current study or book that he was writing. And it kind of opened his eyes to be like, wow, these people, they already figured this stuff out hundreds of years ago, and I'm just realizing it now. It's like these people beforehand were way smarter than any of us actually are right now.
And reality itself is not a concept. Reality is
so that right there, it took me years to figure out what he meant by that. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody else because I think that that's something that you have to figure out on your own. But once you figure it out, there's so many more doors that open. There's so many more opportunities because you finally understand what it all means. It takes a minute, and it's not as complicated as you think it is. Originally, I thought it was very complicated, convoluted, but it is very, very simple.
And we won't give it a name. Now, it's amazing.
That's what I don't want to tell you.
What doesn't exist in the real world? For example,
Side note, Sydney, if you ever get a visit, highly, highly recommend it. That place is absolutely fantastic. You can go to Opera House if you want to. I went there when I saw a ballet. It was pretty cool. I mainly just went because I just wanted to be like, hey, I saw a show at the Opera House, and it was one that was open when I was there. It was like $20. I had to stand up the whole time. Wasn't great. There's some. It was a good show, but ballet is not for me. Just there wasn't much in it. But besides the point, I'd say if you ever get the opportunity, go to Australia, go to the Opera House, just wander around, see what you can find, because the place is absolutely phenomenal.
in the real world, there aren't any things, nor are there any events. That doesn't mean to say that the real world is a perfectly featureless blank. It means that it is a marvelous system of wiggles in which we descry things and events in the same way as we would project images on a Rorschach blot or pick out particular groups of stars.
I just kind of want to go into what he was talking about with the Rorschach block. It's the same thing with these images that relate two different points of view. In one people, you can think of the white and gold or black and blue dress, essentially. Everybody will see things differently. They see colors, they see images, they see people, they see opportunities. Everybody sees things in a different light with the perspective that they have on the world. I could see opportunity in stocks and real estate and business that could potentially help me prosper later in my life. Whereas somebody else would see those exact same things, have those exact same conversations, and not have the same point of view as I do. They wouldn't take up the mantle of progressing forward with that opportunity, whereas they might see something like, hey, this movie is connected to this line of thinking, and this movie somehow connects to this, and then there's all these other hidden details, because that's the point of view that they view the world. Everybody has a different point of view, and everybody sees different perspectives that will be able to brought to that point of view.
Stars in the sky and call them constellations, as if they were separate groups of stars. Well, they're groups of stars in the mind's eye, in our system of concepts. They are not out there as constellations already grouped in the sky. So in the same way, the difference between myself and all the rest of the universe is nothing more than an idea. It is not a...
That is the coolest concept that I think if you can grasp that, my God, you're going to be just fine.
real difference. And meditation is the way in which we come to feel our basic inseparability from the whole universe.
Meditation is hands down the best strategy, tactic, thing you can do to understand your thinking, focus, and overall well-being and place in the universe.
And what that requires is that we shut up. That is to say, that we become interiorly silent.
What they're doing right here in the clips that you can see is with them sitting out in nature, them sitting by themselves in solitude. Yes, there are clips and probably noises around them right now just to film that specific shot. But it's there because you truly get to listen. You get to understand what nature has to bring, and you understand, well, I don't want to ruin the surprise because I think that you need to go experience it yourself. But what I'm trying to get at is go sit out in silence. Go do what these people are doing, sitting in nature, just listening, meditating, focusing on their breathing, trying to quiet that internal monologue. Because a lot of people that I talk with say that they always have constant thinking going on within their head. And I'm like, that has got to be incredibly frustrating and annoying. If you can step back and realize that you're just an observer to those thoughts, then the thoughts cease to exist. Like, yes, you still have them from time to time, but they aren't yelling, they aren't fighting, they aren't trying to tell you to do other things, because you acknowledge that you're just a silent observer and you're just along for the ride just as anybody else is.
And cease from the interminable chatter that goes on inside our skulls. Because, you see, most of us think compulsively all the time. That is to say, we talk to ourselves. And I remember when I was a boy we had a common saying, talking to yourself is the first sign of madness. Now, obviously, if I talk...
What he was just saying is everybody's like, oh, talking to yourself is the first sign of madness. Look at all these successful YouTubers, TikTokers, vloggers, podcasters, anybody that you can think of, they're talking to themselves. Well, in a certain way. Like, yes, me putting this out here right now is me talking to myself because there's nobody else here. I got 3 dogs. I got a bird. If there's a cat, that's about it. But otherwise, other than that, it's just me talking to hopefully somebody that's listening on the other side that'll see this and it might resonate with them. But you have to start by putting yourself out there and just kind of, having the conversations with yourself to begin with. It will bring a lot more self-awareness and self-attitude, self-awareness to yourself, because you'll be able to notice and acknowledge when you're saying something, and notice and acknowledge when somebody else is saying something as well, because you were able to listen to yourself. And most people, they don't like listening to themselves. Most people just don't like listening to themselves. But I think that's the best thing that you can do, is listen to yourself speak or watch yourself act via video or audio. It's going to help you improve so much.
Talk all the time, I don't hear what anyone else has to say. And so in exactly the same way, if I think all the time, that is to say, if I talk to myself all the time, I don't have anything to think about except thoughts. And therefore I'm living entirely in the world of symbols, and I'm never in relationship with reality. All right, now that's the first basic reason for meditation. But there is another sense, and this is going to be a little bit more difficult to understand, why we could say that meditation doesn't have a reason.
There really is no reason to meditate other than to do it for yourself. You do it for yourself, you do it for your own well-being. Don't do it for other people. Do it for you, because that's what you know you need to do to be able to calm down that internal monologue and figure out who you are and what you can do and what you can actually achieve.
Or doesn't have a purpose. And in this respect, it's unlike almost all other things that we do, except perhaps making music and dancing. Because when we make music, we don't do it in order to reach a certain point, such as the end of the composition. If that were the purpose of music, to get to the end of the piece, then obviously the fastest players would be the best. And so likewise, when we are dancing, we are not aiming to arrive at a particular place on the floor, as we would be if we were taking a journey. When we dance, the journey itself is the point. When we play music, the playing itself is the point. And exactly the same thing is true in meditation. Meditation is the discovery that the point of life is always arrived at in the immediate moment.
That is the most insightful advice that you'll ever hear. Everything you have to do is discoverable within the specific moment. If you're getting frustrated by noises, if you're getting frustrated by your thoughts, if you're getting frustrated by the people around you, it's because you're not being in the present moment. Once you're in the present moment, does shit get fun.
And therefore, if you meditate for an ulterior motive, that is to say, to improve your mind, to improve your character, to be more efficient in life, you've got your eye on the future and you are not meditating.
Which I know I did just say that meditating does help you, and it does. You can't go into it of expecting it to change everything in the future. Like when I was meditating and when I still do meditate, it's more about just being in the present moment, focusing on my breath. It does help you later in the future, though. That's the thing that I think you have to understand is, yes, he is saying that you have your eye on the future, but you don't have your eye on the future, if that makes sense.
Because the future is a concept. It doesn't exist. As the proverb says,
the only time is here, right now. There is no then, and there is no now. Well, there is no then, and there is no past. There is only now.
Tomorrow never comes. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There never will be, because time is always now.
This is why we have the ability to focus on what we want to see in the future and be able to obtain it. It might take 5 years, it might take 2 weeks, it might take 5 minutes. But if you have the ability to focus on the future of what you want to achieve, it's no different from being here right now. It's the same thing if you want to change your past. Like, you can look back, this is essentially called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. I can go into this more depth in another video on somebody that's talking about NLP. But at the end of the day, you can go back, you can relive that specific moment, you can picture yourself doing it completely different, which in turn, when that event comes again in the future, you'll be more prepared and better able to overcome that. It can also help you overcome traumas, past experiences that you didn't like or you didn't prefer the interaction. You just have to be able to put yourself back in those shoes and be able to feel the exact emotions, thoughts, feelings, and tone, and then it really helps you out a lot.
And that's one of the things we discover when we stop talking to ourselves and stop thinking. We find there is only a present, only an eternal now. So it's funny then, isn't it, that one meditates for no reason at all, except we could say for the enjoyment of it. And here I would interpose the essential.
It is very enjoyable once you just follow the breath.
Principle that meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion as we know it is that it is so mixed up with grim duties. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation, when correctly done, has nothing to do with all that.
This is why I tell my friends I prefer to meditate, be more on the spiritual realm than go to church.
It's a kind of digging the present. It's a kind of grooving with the eternal now. And brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now.
That's all we have. The only time we have is here and now. There is no then, there is no future. And if you guys want to watch more videos on Allan Watts, or you want me to do more takes on reviewing his words of wisdom, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, I think he's a very influential people. Some people think he's a hack from what I've heard, but I feel like every person you listen to has some good things and has some bad things, and you have to be the one that decides on what to take and what not to take, and that's what I'm doing here. Everything that I say, don't believe me. If you want to believe some things, believe those things. At the end of the day, make the decisions to do what you want to do. These are just things that I've found that have helped me get to the point to where I'm at right now, and I'm seeing more accelerated growth now than ever before. So if you want to listen, yeah. If you guys do like these, obviously subscribe, and we'll just kind of go on to the next one. As I said in the previous video, just kind of mixing up the types of content, things that I find interesting that hopefully will help you be able to attain the level of freedom and wealth and prosperity that you want to achieve in your life. You guys have a good day.